Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Political Hitman. I'm Howie, your political hitman, here on Israel News Talk Radio. Welcome to the program. We are live, which means that you could call in. The numbers to call, 301-768-4841 in North America. And in Israel, the number is 0265-00151. Those are the numbers to call to get in on the conversation. So I spent a lot of time on this show talking about assimilation and the death of Jewry in North America. I spent an inordinate amount of time on the show talking about that because I feel that the issue is extremely important. I feel that if we talk about Jews and Judaism falling apart in North America, and we see that there's a country that exists where Judaism reigns supreme for the most part, why would people choose to stay in a place where Judaism is falling apart? And this is basically the theme that I follow in the episodes that I talk about assimilation. Today we're going to talk about assimilation, but we're going to take it in a totally different direction, not the direction I usually take it in. I'm not going to use examples and burden you with statistics because I'm just tired of talking about statistics. We all know, all of us know, the statistics. We all know the intermarriage rate. We all know that the kosher industry in North America is falling apart because the volume is just not there. We all know that North American Jews are under attack on a regular basis in major U.S. cities. This is common knowledge. We don't have to talk about that. Today, I want to talk about kosher food. I want to talk about food that promotes assimilation. You're probably all just stopped and said, what's he talking about? I will tell you about food. And I want to talk about food. And people think I'm crazy when I do this and when I talk about this stuff. But I want to talk about food that promotes assimilation. And there's plenty of it out there. And this is something that we have to talk about. Simple as that. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman on Israel News Talk Radio.
Always challenging the status quo. Hello, I'm Rod Bryant on Beyond the Matrix here at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. I want to encourage you to listen each week, every Wednesday at the same time, for an amazing show that will challenge you, inform you, and inspire. News, views, and wisdom for the nations here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Don't forget, Beyond the Matrix every week, Wednesday, here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, here on Israel News Talk Radio. Thank you so much for joining me. You can join me in the chat room by going to IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com and clicking on that big button on the top of the page that says chat room. There you'll also see numbers. The numbers are there on the top of the page. And in North America, the numbers are 301-768-4841. In Israel, the numbers are 0265-00151. I found them on the top of the page on Israel News Talk Radio. So feel free to use those numbers anytime during the show. I'd love to talk to you. So we're talking about intermarriage. We're talking about, it's part of it. It's part of it. I don't want to talk about intermarriage in general right now. We're talking about assimilation in the Jewish community. We know in North America the assimilation rate is extremely high, almost 60% of intermarriage. The intermarriage rate is almost 60%. The assimilation rate is much higher than that. And I wanted to take a different angle when it comes to assimilation. I wanted to talk about food and how food encourages assimilation. Well, certain foods. So the other day, I got a flyer for a fast food restaurant, a kosher fast food restaurant near my house. Uh, all these restaurants have been closed because of the COVID-19 shutdowns, so they're all trying to generate business. So they deliver, and everyone's trying to generate business one way or another. So they're trying to find a way to attract people to buy from their restaurant. So this restaurant happens to be a burger joint. They sell hamburgers, French fries, hot dogs, burger joint. Get a flyer from them, and I'm looking at the flyer. And aside from the outpriced products on the flyer, one of the products was Kosher Cheeseburger. And I stopped, and I looked at it. And it was a kosher cheeseburger. In fact, it was a kosher bacon cheeseburger. And I stopped and I looked at it twice, and I looked at it 3 times. And I called the restaurant. I have to speak to the owner because I wanted a little more information about this kosher bacon cheeseburger. And I said to the owner, "Hi, I'm Howie, and I'm calling regarding this kosher bacon cheeseburger. I'd like to know, what are you using for bacon and what are you using for cheese?" So the guy says to me, "Oh, for bacon, we're using turkey fries. So basically, we're slicing the leg of the turkey really thin, and we're frying the leg of the turkey, and that will be that represents the bacon. It is we put some bacon flavoring into it, so it tastes like bacon and it looks like bacon. And for cheese, we have the soy cheese that melts. We found a soy cheese that melts. And now we're making cheeseburgers. So bacon cheeseburgers, kosher bacon cheeseburgers." I listened to the owner of the restaurant. He explained this to me. Then I said to him, "Do you really believe that by pretending to be something you're not, by trying to get around the laws of kosherness, by trying to imitate things that aren't kosher, like things that are really in the Torah, in the Bible, specifically says are not kosher, do you not think that you're making a mockery out of kosher laws? By selling a kosher, and it's right there in your flyer," I said to him, "by selling a kosher bacon cheeseburger, is that not making a mockery out of kosherness? Is that not making a mockery out of laws of kosher? Is that not making a mockery out of the will of God? This is what God commanded us to do. Is not making a mockery out of the commandment?" He hung up on me. I thought about it. And I got another flyer for sushi. I got another flyer for, they make this crab salad. And as I was reading these flyers and looking at the offerings from these kosher restaurants, I couldn't help but wonder if the food that we are eating and the food that we are promoting through our certified kosher establishments, if they are pretending to be non-kosher foods, then we are doing, and this is selling, and this is demanded and selling, then Jews are doing a horrific job in teaching the values of Judaism to our children and to our people, to the population. Then Jews have failed miserably in teaching the values of following Jewish tradition. Oh, sure, all the ingredients in the kosher cheeseburger, bacon cheeseburger, are kosher ingredients. No one's saying that the kosher bacon cheeseburger wasn't kosher. But just the concept of people wanting to eat a bacon cheeseburger, people who are kosher wanting to eat a bacon cheeseburger makes me think that maybe, just maybe, we have to go back to the basics and start teaching the basics again. So a while back, we did a show talking about the 10 Commandments. Now, many of you must remember that show because I got a ton of emails after that show talking, a bunch of discussions I got into with a lot of you about that show and the 10 Commandments. And if we think about the 10 Commandments, and look, there's many, many more rules, laws, and obligations that Jews have beyond the 10 Commandments. But if we just look at the 10 Commandments, the top 10, God's top 10 list. If we look at the 10 Commandments and we look at the last one, you shouldn't covet, you shouldn't be jealous of your neighbor's goods. Shouldn't that apply to food too? Should we not be jealous that our non-Jewish brethren, our non-Jewish friends, can eat a cheeseburger with bacon on it? They can eat pig and cheese and meat. Should we not be jealous about that? I don't think we should. And the reason's quantifiable. I'll tell you why I don't think we should be jealous that other people are eating stuff that we're not allowed eating. So we're creating foods that mimic their foods, but I mean it's just ridiculous. It's gotten to it's not gotten to a point. It was always at a point where it should be unacceptable. If I was a certifying agency, which I'm not, and a lot of people are saying, thank God he's not. But if I was a certifying agency, I would not allow people under my certification to distribute and to sell food that imitates non-kosher food. I wouldn't allow it. I would never allow it. And the reason I would never allow it is because we should not be coveting our neighbor's goods. We shouldn't be jealous that our neighbors can eat pig and we can't. There should be no jealousy involved at all. In order to be Jewish, and this is something that's never explained to the Jewish people, and it's not said enough. In order to be Jewish, you got to be different. Judaism isn't conformation, isn't conforming. It's not conforming into society. That's not Judaism. Judaism is standing separate from society, standing differently from society, not assimilating into mainstream society. We have our own set of rules. Jews have our own obligations, all given to us by God. So when we stand in front of God, and God said, I don't want you doing this, when we go and try to find a way around it, try to find a loophole around God's rules, is that really showing respect to God? Are we showing respect to God by doing that? Are we showing respect to the rules? Are we following are we following our obligations if we're trying to find a shortcut and a way around the rules? Now I know a lot of people think, and when I made this argument before, people have told me you're crazy. It's just food, and all the food is kosher. So what's the problem? The problem goes beyond the food. Sure, every ingredient in the food is kosher. Sure. Everything they're doing, the procedures of producing the food, all under strict kosher supervision. I have no issue with the kosherness of the food. It's the concept, the intellectual concept, and the message we are sending to the nations, and the message we are sending to our children and to our nation. That it's okay. That, oh, sure, they eat pork chops, so we can eat pork chops. It's fine. Our pork chops are veal chops, but we'll pretend they're pork, so we could be just like them. It's a classic form of assimilation. It's assimilating without pretending not to be assimilated. And we saw this form of assimilation, and it's amazing because I'm going to continue with this after the break. We see this form of assimilation at least once a year on a mass form. And every time I bring it up, that time of year comes around, and I bring it up, and people try to shoot me down. They say, you're overreacting, you're stupid, this is crazy. But I will explain to you how I'm not crazy. I will explain to you how this all fits together, and the food that we pretend to eat, well, the food that we're eating, that's pretend food, that's pretending to be other food, that food is encouraging and promoting the assimilation culture of North America. And it is one of the reasons that the North American Jewish population is falling apart. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. Go to the website, IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Click on the chat room button.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman here on Israel News Talk Radio. Join me in the chat room on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Just go to the site, click on that chat room button, and you can join me in the chat room. On the top of the page, you'll also see the numbers to call in. In North America, the number is 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 02-6500151. Feel free to call in, be part of the program here on Israel News Talk Radio. So we're talking about assimilation and food. Talking about food assimilation, and I saw that I've already gotten reaction to what I'm saying. So I was talking about these bacon cheeseburgers that are being sold by a kosher restaurant, a local kosher restaurant, and I called the owner and I said to the owner, "Hey, what are you selling a bacon cheeseburger?" And he said, "Well, all the ingredients are kosher. It's just pretending to be a bacon cheeseburger." Well, that's unacceptable to me, because it violates commandment number 10, which means that we shouldn't be jealous of our neighbors' goods. And so, and in that case, because we can't be jealous of our neighbors' goods, we shouldn't be emulating what our neighbors have. Emulation is a form of jealousy. So Coleman, the producer on Israel News Talk Radio, he was yelling at me during the break, and he was telling me that he disagrees with what I'm saying, because on Pesach, on Passover, we sell our chametz, we sell our leavened products, but they don't actually leave our home, and we know that we're going to buy them back at the end, and we know that the people we sell them to, the people who aren't Jewish that we sell them to, are never going to come and get them. So it's kind of a technical loophole. So to him, this loophole is the exact same loophole as making a bacon cheeseburger with kosher ingredients. I understand what Coleman is saying, but I disagree. By making a bacon cheeseburger, we are emulating a product that is strictly forbidden by the Torah, strictly forbidden by the Bible. We are not allowed to eat it, period. You can't mix milk and meat, and you can't eat bacon. Pigs are strictly forbidden, and that is a commandment from God. God said you can't eat pig, so we don't eat pig. So pretending to eat pig and then pretending to eat pig and cheese is just the North American way of saying we want to be just like everyone else. And that is the classic definition of assimilation. But it doesn't stop there, because it goes even further. Now, I do this every year, and every year I get attacked by my American Jewish friends when I talk about Chinese food on Christmas Eve. So there's an American tradition where you eat Chinese food on Christmas Eve. And it seems like a crazy tradition. It seems like a kind of a stupid tradition that Jews go running out to find Chinese food on Christmas Eve. But there is a story of assimilation that started that tradition, and it bothers me. And it bothers me every year, and every year I get smacked down, but every year I still complain. It bothers me when Orthodox Jews promote this kind of tradition. They keep telling me a lot of these American Jews who promote this tradition tell me, "Oh, Howie, it's harmless. What are you talking about?" But it's not harmless. The tradition started when an American businessman wanted to eat non-kosher. He was regularly eating non-kosher, but his religious kosher parents didn't know he was eating non-kosher. And so on Christmas Eve, everything's closed, but Jews have really nothing to do. And so this American Jewish businessman decided that he was going to take his parents out to eat. Now, in order for his parents to go out and eat, he would have to go to a kosher restaurant. But he didn't want to eat kosher. So what he did was he took him to a Chinese restaurant. And he didn't tell him it wasn't kosher. Now, at the time that this happened, the kosher restaurants didn't have the teudas. They didn't have the kosher certification certificates. You knew the owners. You knew it was kosher. You went and ate there. Today, the kosher industry has popped into $1 billion industry, and there are kosher supervisors and kosher certificates and competing kosher certificates. It's become a big business. But at the time in New York City, if you knew the owner of the restaurant, you knew the restaurant was kosher, you went to eat there. And this was like in the 50s, early 60s. So he took his parents to this Chinese restaurant, knowing that the Chinese hide the pork and hide all the non-kosher ingredients in the wraps and in the stir fries, and that his parents would never realize that they were eating non-kosher. And they trusted him that he would be taken to a kosher restaurant. And so he took them to the Chinese place that Christmas Eve to eat Chinese, and they ended up eating the pork and the shrimp and all the other stuff. Okay. The next year, he took them again. And this became their family tradition. And eventually their friends started joining them, and then it became a big New York tradition. And then once it became a New York Jewish tradition amongst secular Jews in New York, it became a wider tradition. It started spreading because you know the way that works. One friend does another, and invites another, and another one says, "Oh, that's a great idea. Let's do it." And suddenly became an American Jewish tradition to eat Chinese food on Christmas Eve. But when the story starts with a man deceiving his parents to go and eat non-kosher food, and this is the tradition, and this is the tradition that Jews, kosher Jews, are promoting, what you are doing is you are promoting assimilation. You are actually actively taking part in the destruction of the Jewish people by promoting assimilation, by promoting people to go and eat food that appears to be kosher but is not. And I get slapped down every year. Every year they tell me, "How you're crazy. What are you talking about? This is totally insane. What you are saying is insane," they tell me. And I say to them, "Well, you know the story, the origin story." And they say, "Yeah." And I say, "You know the origin story was a Jewish guy lying to his parents to eat non-kosher." And they say, "Yeah." And I said, "And you know that that kosher Chinese food, the way they prepare kosher Chinese food and the way they prepare non-kosher Chinese food are almost identical. So if I took you to a kosher Chinese restaurant and then you took me to a non-kosher Chinese restaurant, they probably couldn't tell the difference between the dishes." He said, "Yeah, I know that." I said, "So should Jews really be eating Chinese food altogether then? If the food looks so similar, and that a Jew might confuse kosher for non-kosher, should the certifying agencies, should people be making kosher Chinese?" And that they don't have an answer for. That they I have to think about it. I don't know. Maybe not. I have to think about it. Then I ask the question. I say, all right. So let's say it's okay, and now you want to eat your Chinese food, and you want to have a big glass of almond milk with it. So you have a big white glass of milk lying on the table with you, and somebody else walks by, and they look at it and they say, "Huh, look at that! An Orthodox Jew eating meat and drinking milk." It's a concept called marazayin. It means a bad eye, where people are looking at you and they see you doing something which is usually okay, but they assume that you're doing something wrong because of the way it looks. So the rabbis have said, look, if you're going to have almond milk, leave the container on the table so at least they see that it's a container of almond milk or cream or whatever. But why would you get yourself into that position anyway? Why would you even go there? Why do we insist on doing this stuff? Because we want to feel like we fit into society. The Jewish population of North America wants to feel like they are part of regular society. And the only way to feel like they are part of regular society is to emulate and to recreate regular society within their realm. And to pretend that they are accepted in regular society. This is why they do it. This is exactly why the only reason they do it. I mean, does the food taste good? I'm sure it must. I as a rule, try not to eat food that emulates non-kosher food. So, I mean, I'll have pizza because pizza is just cheese, and I won't have pizza with fake meat on it. I won't have pizza with tofu meat on it. No, because that looks too much like a non-kosher food. I don't eat that kind of food. And I don't eat that. It's a conscious choice I made not to eat that kind of food. And when I worked in the food industry, I never even served that kind of food. When somebody ordered it, I had somebody else serve it. I refused to even serve that kind of food because I feel it's wrong. Because I feel that we're promoting assimilation by providing this kind of food and by encouraging people to eat this kind of food. We're promoting assimilation. And any promotion of assimilation sits wrongly with me. We have to be promoting Judaism. We have to be promoting kosher food and food we're allowed to eat and food that we should be eating and food we have a rich tradition of Jewish cooking. And we should be promoting the rich tradition of Jewish cooking. You have cooking from all over the world, Jewish traditional cooking from all over the world, hundreds of thousands of dishes. And we have to resort to making a bacon cheeseburger? Come on, we're better than that, aren't we? Now, for my non-Jewish friends who are listening, I don't, it's okay for you to eat the bacon cheeseburger. You're not obligated not to eat it. But Jewish people are obligated not to eat that kind of thing. So why do we have to pretend? Why do we have to go there? Well, give me a call. I want to know what you have to say. The numbers are on the top of the page at israelnewstalkradio.com. If you can't read them on the top of the page, I'll give them to you now. 301-768-4841. In Israel, 02-6500-151. Go to the top of the page of Israel News Talk Radio. Click on that chat room button. I'm in the chat room the entire show. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Bentako, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany is but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
Political Hitman. I'm Howie Silberger, your political hitman, right here on Israel News Talk Radio. So the questions have been coming in hard and fast, and I want to address some of them. So one person, I've been talking, and one person says to me, well, the chilonim in Israel, the people who are non-religious, they eat cheeseburgers, they eat the real stuff, they don't eat the fake stuff. They're not assimilating. Well, Israel's a totally separate situation than North America. In Israel, if you want to assimilate into regular society in Israel, regular society is based on Judaism. It's a Jewish-themed country, so it's a little different than integrating into the Judeo-Christian society of North America, because people choose more the Christian than the Judeo side, and that's really where the issue lies. Now the issue may be that Jews are assimilating into American society because they're not living in Israel. Well, that's a given, isn't it? If Jews moved to Israel, then we wouldn't have this problem of intermarriage in North America. But the reality is that Jews live in North America, so that's where we're at. I got a message from Frank. He says, should children be given toys of non-kosher animals? So of course this question is based on the predicate. He didn't mention it in the question, but the predicate of this is that Muslims don't give their children toys of non-halal animals. So if Muslims don't eat pork, they won't give their children a pig doll. There are segments of Orthodox Judaism that does that too. They don't give their children dolls of animals that are non-kosher. I don't see the relevance or the point in not giving your children dolls of non-kosher animals. It doesn't really make much sense to me. I honestly, I've never had a conversation with a child who had a, let's say, pet cow or a stuffed cow. We'll call it pet cow. A toy that's a stuffed cow. I've never had a child, a 3, 4, or 5-year-old child, lift up the cow to me and say, "Hey, look, a hamburger. Hey, look, rib steak." I've never had them do that. I've had them lift up the cow to me and say "moo," because that's the sound a cow makes. But the association between the animal and the food usually comes a lot later in life. So I don't think that giving a baby or a toddler an animal that represents a non-kosher, a stuffed animal that represents a non-kosher animal, is really going to affect very much that baby's perception of what they can and can't eat. So I have no issue with giving babies any animal. If they're learning how to make the sounds of animals, they're learning what sounds each animal makes, giving them that animal will probably help to make the association between the sound and the animal. So I'm not Muslim, and I know Muslims have a strong feeling about this. I don't really have a particularly strong feeling on giving children toys of non-kosher animals. If you want to get on the conversation, you could do so. Go to IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com. Number is on the top of the page. Click on the chat room button. You could join me in the chat room. I'm in the chat room the entire show, so you can post up messages in the chat room. You could call in North America. The number to call, 301-768-4841. In Israel, the number is 0265000151. We are talking about food that is kosher, but looks like non-kosher food. I used the example of a bacon cheeseburger that a kosher restaurant near me is selling. They're hawking a kosher cheeseburger, a kosher bacon cheeseburger. When I called the owner of the restaurant and I asked him about this kosher bacon cheeseburger, he told me, the bacon is actually turkey and it's kosher, and the cheese is soy cheese and it's kosher, and so there's no issue in the kosher department, but there's an issue in the moral department. And I really feel, and I'm not being facetious here. Everyone thinks I'm joking when I say this, but I actually feel that we are violating the 10th commandment, the commandment of not being jealous of our neighbors. We are violating that commandment by trying to emulate the food that our neighbors eat. Jews have to be proud of our heritage. We were given a lifestyle by God. God said to us, "I am giving you this lifestyle, and the lifestyle we are given, we should be living by the lifestyle we're given." Now, God told us that we can't eat certain things and we can't do certain things. So doing them is really trying to skirt around the rules, trying to get around God's commandments. And that to me is wrong. We shouldn't be trying to skirt around God's commandments. We shouldn't be trying to say, "I know better than God. If God told me not to do it, I know better than he did." When we do that, are we any better than the assimilationists? Are we any better than the Hellenists? Are we any better than anybody else? And I'm not saying that Jews are better morally than anybody else, but what I'm saying is that when you're Jewish, you should be following Jewish tradition. There are millions of Jewish dishes that have been handed down generation to generation. Millions of Jewish dishes that we could be preparing and we could be serving. We don't have to go to other cultures. We don't have to go to other societies to pull the food that we to copy the food that we eat. To me, life is simple. I'm always flabbergasted when people tell me how complicated life is. Life is only as complicated as you make it. If you live simply and you follow the rules, life is simple. Life is easy. Life gets complicated when you try to find ways around the rules, when you try to find ways to be better than the rules. You try to find ways to push the rules aside. You try to find ways to assimilate but not feel guilty about assimilation. And that's exactly what a bacon cheeseburger does it. It does. What it does is it tells the guy who buys the bacon cheeseburger, the Jewish guy who buys the kosher bacon cheeseburger, who sits down in the restaurant and feels like he is cheating on Judaism when he's not cheating on Judaism. He has that winning expression. It's like the kid who tells his teacher, "I'm not feeling well," right before a test, and the teacher sends the kid to the principal's office or to the nurse's office. And the kid sits there, I have a tummy ache, but the tummy ache doesn't really exist. But the kid's smiling because they got away with not taking the test. It feels like you're trying to cheat. And so when cheating becomes a good thing, and when the feeling of cheating becomes a good thing and not a negative, becomes a positive instead of a negative, then perhaps we should be rethinking about the way we live our lives. Perhaps we should be rethinking the way we look at our situation, the way we behave, the way we interact with our religion. Religion has become a really bad word in North America. North America has disparaged religion for decades, but for those of us that still believe in religion, still hang on to the ways of God, then perhaps we should stop looking for ways to get around the ways of God. Perhaps we should start just accepting the fact that Jews are different than the rest of society. We live differently. We have different rules. We eat different stuff. We pray differently. We do everything differently. And the beauty of Judaism, the gorgeous part of Judaism, the part of Judaism that is the least emphasized, but the most brilliant part of Judaism, is the fact that we are different from everyone else. It is the most brilliant part of Judaism. We look the same. We speak the same languages. Those of us who have been assimilated into societies, and all of us are assimilated to a certain extent, speak the same languages as the rest of society, but we do things differently. We behave differently. We act differently. Our moral values are different. Our family values are different. The commandments, the ways we have to interact with God, the ways we have to interact with each other, the ways we have to interact with society is completely different than secular society, than the people who aren't Jewish. And so we have to be celebrating this difference, not trying to hide it. We should be celebrating. We should be pushing this difference, and we should be pushing our specialness forward rather than putting it away and being embarrassed by it. And the embarrassment of the specialness of Judaism, the differentness of Judaism, is what causes most Jews, at least in North America, to assimilate into society, to try to get rid of that differentness and tell society, I'm the same as you. When the argument was made that the non-religious people in Israel still connect to Judaism when they assimilate into society, that's because their society is based on Judaism. If they lived in North America, they would be lost to the masses, exactly like North American Jewry. But because they live in Israel, and the base of Israel is Jewish themed, at least they have that little connection to Judaism. Where in North America, there is none. Once you leave, you're gone. Once you give it up, you're finished. So we have to learn how to sell the beautiful part of Judaism, the difference of Judaism. We have to learn to make people proud. How to make people proud that they are different, that they are not the same as everyone else, that our rules are not the same as everyone else, that our practices aren't the same as anyone else, our traditions aren't the same as anyone else, and we're not jealous of Christmas, and we're not jealous of Easter, we're not jealous of anything. We have our own traditions, we have our own way of doing things, we have our own lives, and we are proud to live them. We have to start explaining this, we have to start teaching this, we have to start pushing this, because once we do that, then we might see a drop in the assimilation rate in North America. If people start being proud to be Jewish again, then they'll stop looking for other things, and they'll be happy with what they have. I'm Howie Silberger. This is Political Hitman. Thank you for joining me. I will see you again next week, right here on Israel News Talk Radio.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.